All my homies hate Zuko. Sokka gang, rise up. Avatar, The Last Airbender. The animated one, not this one. Or this one. It's a good show, chock full of very good characters. Aang, Toph, not Katara, Azula, Zuko, and of course, our precious baby boy, Sokka. But the weird thing I've found is just about everyone seems to think Zuko is the best singular character in the whole series, seemingly forgetting all about the very heart, soul, and funny bone of Team Avatar. So why, despite competing with such a complete narrative package, is Zuko so incredibly popular? The simple answer? Redemption arc. Zuko has a redemption arc, and redemption arcs are all the rage these days because they're very simple. Bad person becomes good. Therefore, they are a good character too. Bonus points if they're actually just misunderstood or the victim of a traumatic backstory. But I believe it's important to uplift characters who are dynamic and impactful, but also inherently good-natured. And Sokka is all that and more. I am here today to prove that Sokka is not only the most enjoyable character in Avatar, but objectively the best. And I have the evidence right here. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you this question. What is the single most important aspect of a character in modern media? Relatability. The time of our heroes being the ideal conglomeration of our collective cultural virtues has long passed, as we instead choose to see as much of ourselves in them as possible. There is no character in Avatar more relatable than Sokka, because he is the everyman hero. He is John McClane, he is Bilbo Baggins, he is all of us at our best and at our worst. A great many of us are probably brooding edgelords, but every last one of us are frumpy nobodies, and despite being a paragon of shockingly suave and yet thoroughly non-threatening masculinity, Sokka of the Water Tribe is, in the world of Avatar, just some dude with a boomerang. In a party consisting of the literal chosen one, the last hope of a formerly great cultural institution, a sheltered and restrained innovator from the global elite, and eventually a disgraced prince, all of whom are magic living weapons, Sokka and his boomerang are in it solely for their own beliefs and desire to protect their loved ones. Due to the absurdity of that situation, he clocks in over time as somehow both the straight man and the comedic relief of the show, without ever losing track of his core characteristics. That is not an easy balancing act, and that's why it's such a treat when he gets his own special character moments. Let's examine The Boiling Rock, for two reasons. One, it's the best episode in the series. Two, it's the only time Sokka really does anything actively stupid, which is why it works so well to endear us to him and develop him in his trademark, tonally ping-pong style. Coming off his biggest and most thoroughly failed plan, the writers pair Sokka with Zuko of all characters, bouncing his newfound insecurity and lack of structure off the efforts Zuko is currently making to learn restraint. Their dynamic is wildly enjoyable, but only under these circumstances, and letting Sokka take the emotional front seat elevates the joy that comes from watching him basically improv his way through a prison break. For the first time in the series, we see Sokka completely out of his element in what should be his forte, forced to charm and flounder in equal measure while a near-terminal case of Murphy's Law throws monkey wrench after monkey wrench into his ideas, and he's never more like any of us than he is here, literally faking it till he makes it when he would normally have a scale blueprint of the island and a schedule of every guard's piss breaks on hand. Once Hakoda actually shows up and the emotional risk has paid off, Sokka not only continues to not plan anything, but actually takes a physical backseat in the escape attempt, solidifying his post-eclipse arc. Up until this point, Sokka's focus episodes have been mostly about him wanting to prove his worth, whether it's through his intelligence, his leadership, or just his ability to hold his own in combat despite not being a bender. The Boiling Rock is about Sokka stepping far outside his comfort zone to forgive himself for his mistakes, and to help him recenter at a time when he feels he really should be focused on something bigger than himself. That's borderline out of character for him, and it's that kind of personal tension that makes characters feel real and three-dimensional, because that's how real people grow and change. I also chose the Boiling Rock because it's the only time Sokka is definitively more important than Zuko. Now you may be thinking to yourself, what makes Zuko the best character is that he becomes a better person. That's the mark of a great, dynamic character, and while you're not necessarily wrong, there's no rule in the book that says you have to go from bad person to good person. That's just a redemption arc, and it's a tried and tested formula, but personal growth is universal, and how much you grow isn't a direct measure of how well that growth is presented, nor is it the only criteria for the importance or quality of a character. Avatar is, first and foremost, a show made for children, the tween demographic more specifically, one that can't help but love a good bad boy, but more likely needs a strong role model. Sokka of the Water Tribe, I believe at least, can be that role model. A good person becoming a better person is what we should all strive to be, and Sokka, lacking the support of a wise, tea-loving father figure to so callously ignore for 2.5 seasons, must become better on his own, allowing him to grow out of his own mistakes. Sokka is a good person from minute one, if a little flawed. He can be abrasive, casually chauvinistic, some might say sexist, certainly if nothing else a bit ignorant, but who wouldn't be growing up basically alone on the South goddamn Pole? What Sokka expresses without fail is a profound curiosity coupled with a willingness to laugh at himself and be humbled, which he is, a lot. As we've established, Sokka is an everyman, and one from the proverbial backwoods of the entire world, but set in his ways as he looks, he never once proves to be above being taught a lesson, and more importantly, takes every opportunity to put others before himself when it actually matters. And to take the most scenic route on this, let's explore how Sokka is the best romantic partner in Avatar. Now, is that a bit like being the healthiest guy at the morgue? Yeah, kinda, but this is the funniest point I can make while still advancing my legitimate argument, so bear with me. There's nothing worse about this otherwise good show than the painfully shoehorned romantic subplots. Very few of these threads stick around for more than an episode or so, but the two that aren't Sokka are Zuko and his extra blasé goth GF, and then Katara and Aang. Mai is barely a character, and the Katara Aang thing is both stomach-churningly awkward and also just kinda weird, because, I'm too lazy to check, but I was always under the impression that he was 12 and she was 15 or something. Don't correct me if I'm wrong, it really doesn't make it not a crappy subplot. While this trend of Wattpad levels of bad romance would continue into The Legend of Korra, which is a series I can't be bothered to talk about, in what seems like a happy accident by default, Sokka's relationships are actually bizarrely well written, specifically with Suki. Initially being humbled, as he so often is, and therefore developing immense respect for her, Sokka has almost immediate chemistry with Suki. They actively flirt, they help each other grow, and they watch each other's backs. You know, real couple stuff. That's a big deal in this show. Do not forget how bad the rest is. They really don't spend all that much screen time together, but that they act like a healthy couple, respect each other's boundaries, and consistently put each other's well-being before their own is something that kids could actually benefit from more than you'd think. Children's media is packed with oddly toxic relationships and an infectious case of shipping makes us money. Sokka's uncanny ability to just be a good boyfriend to not one but two women, and more importantly, move on from one to the other in a healthy way, it's a criminally underappreciated part of his character. Especially after being introduced as both arrogant and sexist, Sokka develops a thorough respect for women in an organic and narratively interesting way, which is one of the stranger sentences I've said, but it pays off in a tight, season-long arc that intertwines his development past his immature chauvinism and his struggle to forgive himself for his failures. That's a pretty good person, generally speaking. Anyway, now for my favorite one. My friends, I present to you this wobbly angel, high as shit on poisonous cactus juice, attempting to befriend a cloud. Does this look like a killer to you? A boy who would orchestrate not one but several separate violent uprisings before his 18th birthday? Well, it is, and that's rad. Avatar is a good story, unfortunately littered with weak and frankly mishandled musings on conflict and revolution. Jet is the world's worst domestic terrorist for exactly one ham-fisted episode, then gets like half a redemption arc and then just dies. The White Lotus is almost an interesting idea, but aside from jacked Iroh, it's ultimately pretty goofy. Let's see, Fire Nation Footloose is also a thing that happens, and don't even get me started on Aang and the Deus Ex Turtle Sensei. You know who gets it right? Of course you do. It's Sokka of the Water Tribe. Sokka is hard as cold steel, and don't you dare tell me otherwise. He may be introduced as laughably underprepared, but don't ever forget, Sokka walks into the first battle of the entire series, aware he's probably going to die, and willing to do so. Metal. As the series progresses, Sokka proves time and again that he is a man who fears nothing and is shaken by nothing. Who watched his girlfriend turn into the moon? Sokka. Who ousted a power-hungry Earth Kingdom military official? Twice? Sokka. Yeah, you forgot about that other one, didn't you? It's not a long scene, but it counts. Who made a sword out of a meteor, planned and led a mass-scale militia counterattack against a major military power, busted his dad out of prison and his other girlfriend too, just because he's a goddamn stud? Sokka did that. Because he's metal. And I hear you in the back going, oh, what about the Southern Raiders? Selfish. Katara is selfish, and she did not earn that hardness. Sokka's mom is dead too, loser, but look at him not making it everyone else's problem. Okay, I got a little carried away. It's kind of a cool episode, but it comes off as like awkward and tacked onto the Adventures with Zuko collection, and you just can't make me like Katara, okay? Anyway, in a story that is in a great many ways about compassion, understanding, forgiveness, inner peace, and other kumbaya words, Sokka stands out as a character who finds peace within his cause. He's a soldier, a tactician, a shrewd, creative, to reiterate, hard as nails, man of reason. He's playing chess while the rest of the cast is either playing patty cake or Russian roulette. In Zuko's case, both at the same time. But to fly against the wind the writers are sailing this narrative ship with is what makes Sokka such a great character. He's not an edgelord, he's just emotionally strong, but he's fun, he messes around, arguably the most out of everyone, because he's happy with who he is. Sokka, maybe accidentally, but I hope not, strengthens the overall point of the story by being comfortable with his beliefs, even if it means he can only serve his small part. There's nothing more metal than self-awareness. Sun Tzu said that. I'm sure the vast majority of you have already seen the light, and those on the fence simply need this wrapped up in a neat bow. For you, I have prepared this profound statement, summarizing the key themes behind my points. If a lotus seed grew into a sunflower, that would be impressive. But that wouldn't make it a lotus, now would it? Floored, aren't you? Wisdom in spades, and yet so elegant as a metaphor. No? No, that was stupid, you say. Well, so was Zuko not killing his dad when he had the chance. Sokka wouldn't have waxed poetic about destiny, he would have iced Ozai right there with his much cooler sword. War over. Shouts out Moon Girlfriend Yue for blocking out the sun. Here's my point. Significant growth does not require an emotional metamorphosis. There's no existential fever and subsequent psychological 180 for Sokka, just a hard-working pillar of casually cavalier energy doing his best to do good and getting better because of it. It's more done with less, in a way. More by ratio, I guess, to take such a big character with so much going on, an archetype so commonly associated with static side characters, and make him as interesting and fleshed out as Sokka is. It's a much more difficult task for writers than turning Zuko into kind of a nervous dork. I don't want to bash Zuko either. He's a well-written character. I just don't think his existence and story arc are as impressive as Sokka's, given the circumstances. In my opinion, as an advocate of the craft, children's media could stand to prioritize these kinds of characters more. If nothing else, we could just do with fewer redemption arcs. We've had enough, you know, not everyone needs redemption.
Secret tunnel through the mountains. Secret tunnel.